Oh, that's great to hear. And I don't know if listeners heard that, but it started off as a side hustle. So it wasn't like he had this, this long-term plan and then built it that way. It's just that he just saw a need, and it just so happened timing and everything. And now, like you said, first court, 800 people signing up. That's amazing. I bet a lot of people on that's listening right now said, I would love 800 clients right away. I'm like, well, it's not that easy, obviously, but when you have a good product or service, you attract the right kind of client, right?
It absolutely was, and honestly, in many ways, it you gotta put in a lot of work. You gotta try really hard, but it was the right product at the right time. Um, I mean, at the time, our software company had 25 people, and we had this inkling that it could work, and I remember reaching out to one of my past employees. I was like, "Hey, Paul, are you up for helping me out with a bit of an experiment?" And so we did this on the side. We didn't want to get artificially positive signals. And so we had a code name for the company. We set up a different email domain name. Our first website was sketchy as stink because we wanted to make sure the product resonated. We didn't just want people to sign up for it because they happen to know who I am or who our software company was. Um, but yeah, like having a very rapid iterating, hacky mentality, agile approach made it very easy to learn quickly. And then we were able to jump in with both feet.
Oh, no, that's great to hear. And so when we think of sales, we think of different techniques and different practices we should do. So in your opinion, Joseph, what are the top three sales practices that anybody should be practicing?
Absolutely. It's such a good question because people often come to us and like, hey, they'll talk about methodologies. Should we use challenger sales? Should we use spin selling? Or they'll talk about technology. Should we use Salesforce or HubSpot? Or they'll ask, what's the most important process? Is it the closing? Is it the discovery? Um, when I'm talking to entrepreneurs and when I'm talking to business owners or talking to people who are looking to get into the field, I try to kind of push a lot of those aside and get to the root of what makes a really successful sales professional. And these characteristics actually make someone a successful professional in a numerous roles, just numerous roles. The top three characteristics that set somebody up for success: first and foremost, the ability to empathize with the customer. Now, I don't mean they've had the same experience as the customer, but they have the ability to actually hear, listen, and imagine they're in that same boat. Like one of the customers we spoke to early on, she said, like, if I don't solve this problem, I feel like my boss is going to cut a finger off. I mean, like jarring visual aside, but like
Jeez.
that visceral feeling, like, okay, can you sit in and imagine, like, can you be that worried about this problem? So like empathy, yeah, is number one, and that's going to serve you in any role. Um,
Yeah. And it's funny. Sorry to cut there for empathy. Is
yeah,
the it's not even that complicated in that thing for my people might hear. They might think you said all these different steps in order to sell something or just to sell yourself. And just honestly listening and like I said, empathizing with them, even if you don't have the exact experience, but just because a lot of times your clients just they have a problem that they need solved. But before they're considering investing with you, they just need you to understand what it is that they're going through in some way, shape, or form. Because if you can understand it, because if all you're thinking of is while they're talking, you're zoning them out and just waiting for them to stop talking, that you're ready to start saying, okay, well, here's product and service A, B, or C, right? It's going to
been
cost you
there.
this much, right? So it's like, no, that you don't want to go to the solution right away. Feel it, because you might think it's one thing during the problem when they're venting about what it is, but then you feel like it could just actually switch to something else. You're like, oh, they said this is the initial problem, but in actuality, it's actually this problem over here. And so if I went with my first instinct was to start selling him on that first problem, but this is the secondary problem is the real problem. That's the problem. Then they're gonna be like, oh man, he's gonna keep pitching me over and over again, and they're not wanting to disclose what the real problem is.
That's it. That's totally it. And even better, when you're empathizing, when you focus on listening and empathizing, it's really easy to ask yourself, does my solution solve their problem? And in your heart of hearts, if you say no, it doesn't, you should just stop selling. Like, go and find someone who has a problem that you solve. You're going to be a more successful sales professional. That customer is going to be happier. And there is nothing more authentic than saying, I get your problem and I don't think our product is the right solution. Like, wow, talk about building trust.